Gentlemen, we will now reconvene. It is 12:45 p.m. Ms. Cicchetti, please call the next item.
The next item is J1, Administrative Consent Agenda, Approval of the Board Meeting Minutes for April 26, 2022. The minutes of April 26, 2022 meetings were attached to the public agenda notice for your consideration.
Thank you. Colleagues, members, are there any corrections to the minutes? All right, seeing none. Let's take public comment. Public comment?
Yes, we have not received a request in person, request for any in-person speaker and no written comments, but let's go to the AT&T moderator. AT&T moderator, please let us know if there's anyone on the line who would like to make a public comment regarding this item.
If you wish to make a public comment, please press 1, then 0 at this time. Press 1, then 0. Madam Chair, it appears there is no one who's signaled that they wish to comment.
Thank you very much. Members, would anyone like to make a motion on this item?
So moved.
All right, motion made by Commissioner by Vasquez. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Schaefer. Please call the roll.
The motion is to accept the board meeting minutes for April 26, 2022. Chair Cohn,
Aye.
Vice Chair Schaefer,
Aye.
Member Gaines,
Aye.
Member Vasquez,
Aye.
Deputy Controller Eppolite.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Unanimously. Thank you very much, Ms. Cicchetti. Please call the next item.
The next item is J2, Adoption of Property Tax Forms.
Thank you, Ms. Cicchetti. Members, would anyone like to discuss or comment on this item? All right, seeing none, is there a motion on this item? Yes, sir.
So moved. The revised, I guess it's a revised Proposition 19 forms and revised forms for 2023 lien date.
That's correct. That's correct. All right, a second has been made by Mr. Vasquez. Is there a second? Second. Second by Mr. Schaefer. Excuse me, by Mr. Yes, by Mr. Gaines. Mr. Gaines. All right, Ms. Cicchetti, let's go to public comment.
We have not received a request for any in-person speaker and no written comments, but we'll go to the AT&T moderator. AT&T moderator, do we have anyone on the line who'd like to make a public comment regarding this item?
Thank you. Please press 1 and then 0 at this time if you'd like to make a comment. Currently none in queue.
Thank you very much. Ms. Cicchetti, a motion has been made and it's been seconded. May I have a roll call vote, please?
Motion is to adopt the property tax forms as presented. Chair Cohn,
Aye.
Vice Chair Schaefer,
Aye.
Member Gaines,
Aye.
Member Vasquez,
Aye.
Deputy Controller Eppolite.
Aye.
Thank you.
Motion passes.
Unanimously. Thank you, members. Ms. Cicchetti, please call the next item.
The next item is K1A, Executive Director's Report, Organizational Update, Report on the status and pending and upcoming organizational priorities. This matter will be presented by Ms. Stowers.
Wonderful. Thank you, Ms. Stowers. Make yourself comfortable, and you are welcome to proceed.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Chair Cohen and honorable members. I'm Yvette Stowers, your Executive Director. For today, I will cover 2 items, a brief update on the Google Translation feasibility, and I will cover some upcoming meetings of note. Members, as you will recall, the board directed the Executive Director at its February 23rd meeting to determine the feasibility of implementing Google Translation on the BoE website and on the board member pages as well. Specifically, the board requested an analysis of the pros and cons of using the translation, focusing on cost, risk, issues, and any other implementation factors. The Communication Department has been tasked with this assignment. Since then, staff has been working closely with our service provider, the California Department of Tax and Fee Administration Web Service Unit. While we initially anticipated the implementation of Google to be fairly quick and easy, while doing our due diligence, we encountered some challenges. We're working with Google Translate, our representative there, and CDTFA to resolve the challenges. In addition, we looked at the cost for the paid service as opposed to the free. The pay service is a bit above our budget at this time. And the free version, the one that we're looking to implement, we all know that it is scheduled to leave, will no longer be free in the future. So that's why we took a look at the paid. The paid budget, the cost to do the paid one, it's around $300,000 to $400,000 upfront costs, and then an annual cost of $100,000.
Repeat that one more time.
Yes. To implement the pay one, the startup cost is $300,000 to $400,000, and the annual cost would be $100,000. Although that function is, although that's a very high ticket, the paid version is more accurate in translation than the free version.
And you said the free version is going to no longer be free?
Yeah, Google has confirmed that they provided it to the state agencies and nonprofits in May of 2020 due to the COVID-19 to help with the communication. But it is their plan to no longer offer it for free.
What will it be, what will the new cost be?
It would be the 300 to the 400,000.
Oh, the one you presented?
Yes.
So there's no sliding scale?
There's no sliding scale. One of the things that we wanted to do was see if we could partner with another state agency or a statewide contract to reduce the cost. At this time, there is no statewide contract.
Okay.
Let's see. With that being said, we are looking at other ways to provide our services in different languages, starting with the Proposition 19 fact sheet. Staff is currently having that translate into Spanish, and it will be available on our website and be available for print whenever you need it. It is our goal to do the same for all of the taxpayer rights advocates information sheets, to have them in Spanish, and then have all of these items placed in Chinese as well.
I have a question about
Yes, ma'am.
the subscription service for the Google Translate. What is Google planning to do with all the nonprofits that are currently using the free version of the service?
We did not ask them that. I wouldn't think it would be appropriate for me to ask them their business
Well,
plan.
well, the reason why I ask is, are they going to boot them off? Are they going to require them to pay? If we're able to get in under this plan, although it's leaving, maybe we'll be grandfathered in. That's just along the lines that I'm thinking, because we're already on this free service. If there is, what's their plan?
What's their plan?
Yeah.
If once they say they're no longer offering it, are
Right.
they?
I mean, I'm sure they have thousands, tens of thousands of nonprofit organizations that are utilizing it. Campaigns utilize it. There are other smaller agencies that are utilizing, businesses. So what happens to all of them? So I'm curious to know what that transition plan would be. Just want to make sure that we're taking advantage of all of the free offerings as long as it's available. Do you know when that program will, or service will be?
They have not given us an exact date. They
Okay.
just said that they are,
They're phasing
they're
out.
phasing it out.
Okay, all right, thank you. Go ahead.
If I may, also, knowing that it is being phased out, we are looking at other options that will allow our website to be translated into a different language. And it's not Google-driven, it's other software applications. I'm speaking, the State Controller's Office just recently made a change, and you click on language, and it asks, would you like to interact in our website in a different language? And you you click yes, and then they walk you through changing your router, your browser. So
Okay, that
that's
sounds good.
another option for us, which would be free.
Perfect, because I was going to ask if there's alternative software out there as opposed to the brand name of Google.
Yeah, right.
That's good. So you're still exploring this?
Still exploring it, realizing that it's very important to have our website available to those who do not, English is a second language.
Okay.
And that's, for us, the ultimate goal, our website and the members' website, and our forms and publications to the extent that we can get them translated.
Great, thank you.
I think membership.
Yes, Mr. Schaefer?
I think we can both agree that it's important that somebody wanting to communicate with us be able to do so in an alternative language, but it's also important, I think, that we not expect to have dozens or hundreds, and maybe there is nobody, or maybe there's one. It'd be my position that I'd rather just not provide this until we have some requests. And I've always found out in households and speaking foreign language, the grandparents speak the mother tongue, but the rest of the family who's gone to USA schools is very fluent in English, and I would think any inquiry that household would want to make to us would probably be coordinated by the college kids, that are in the household. I'm just scared to death that we may be financing something when there's little or no demand existing. I go to what's sent out to me as a voter or as a welfare recipient if I was in Los Angeles, and it'll have 20 different languages, and there'll be a dozen different languages that I never heard of, and I'm a pretty intelligent person. So I think want to be politically correct, and I want to be politically correct too, but unless the government's standing there with a gun saying, you've got to do this way, the Congress has mandated, and there's $1,000 an hour fine if you don't, I would just like to wait and see if we have some proof that we do have at least dozens, if not hundreds, before we prepare for something to serve 40 million people.
Thank you.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Mr. Schaefer, you've said that many times on the record, and I really have never addressed it, but I want to acknowledge that today is May is Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month, and in my opening remarks, I noted that more than 22 million make up the API community nationwide, which is becoming the fastest growing immigrant population in the U.S. Approximately 1/3 of the API community lives in California. Now, I'm not suggesting that they all do not speak English, but I am suggesting that there's a majority. Have you heard familiar with the term of the browning of the state of California? That means there are more and more people of color that are coming to this country, that are coming to this state, and it is a privilege to be able to speak English as a first language. We serve the people. We serve all people. Now, whether it's just one person or thousands of people that need help, our job is not to determine what is a good investment and not investment. We need to make sure that the information that we have is accessible to everyone. And that is our job, to make sure that our work is ethnically and linguistically just as diverse as the people that we serve. So please, there are hundreds of thousands and millions of people who would benefit from this. I believe that if we build it, they will come. We're not going to sit and wait for them to come and beg us to put a translate button on this website, but we are going to take the initiative, and we're not the first to do that. You might recall the governor's office has this as a button. Now we have the controller's office as a button. There's one more, CDTFA, I believe. No?
I think Department of Motor Vehicle has.
Department of Motor Vehicles. So these are major oral operations. Let's not wait. We need to show some leadership and get in here and lead. So, Ms. Stowers, I appreciate the work. I know it's been very difficult and slow coming, but this is what progress is about, and we do need to continue to move with urgency so that we are not leaving people, communities of color, behind.
Ms. Cohen, I appreciate if they build it, they will come. The movie, and I endorse that. And if DMV, everybody is forced to deal with DMV. You've got to have a license and da-da-da-da, and they are probably the agency that needs it the most, and I'm all for that. I want to know that at least one soul is coming to the Board of Equalization that we can assist. And if there's just a handful of people instead of millions, that's okay. It's
Thank
just,
you. We
okay.
need to keep moving.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will continue to make work on this and look for a less expensive product.
Excuse me, hold on a minute. Mr. Gaines wants to speak.
Yeah, thank you. I want to thank you for the research you're doing, and I would just, I think you're already headed there, but I'm happy you're looking at some alternatives that would be cost-effective given our budget limitations. So it sounds like there are some alternatives.
Yes,
With that, maybe an opportunity to negotiate with Google also,
yes.
right? And
Yes.
see if we can get the right program at the right price. I think it is a great service to have that available online. I mean, it's getting less and less expensive every year in terms of technology and our ability to communicate in various languages and make sure people are getting the information that they need. So, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Now, members, I'd like to share some important dates that's coming up. June 2nd is the California Taxpayers Association Annual Meeting, and that would kick off the breakfast with the board members. It's an in-person meeting, and I believe their president has personally invited you all to attend and be a panel speaker. I will also be there with several of operational team members. June 8th is the Los Angeles chapter of Tax Executive Institutes. They're hosting their Tax Administrator Night. This is an event with corporate tax directors there. I will be attending that event and representing the Board of Equalization. August 1st is the Northern California Assessors Association 2022 Regional Conference. I'm in the process, I believe you guys were invited, and I'm in the process of drafting an email to you guys with the logistics as far as the conference costs. And then, of course, October 19th is our annual meeting with the assessors. That's all I have for my two items. Any questions?
I do. I wanted to go back just to the Google Translate. I wasn't sure if I was as clear and just providing a little bit of direction. I still want to continue to move down, even if we have Google in the interim as a interim service, a free service. I think we should be jumping on this. We've been talking about this all year now, and we're at, what month is this? May.
This is May.
May.
I followed you that
Okay.
somehow get it to on our website as soon as possible.
Thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate
Question,
that.
if I could? Just expanding on that.
Yes.
Great idea. Can we get some sort of clarity in terms of how long they would provide the service to us for free?
I will ask for that too.
Yeah.
You know, I want get it on. How long will it be free? What's the plan when you're phasing out? Are you going to remove us or re-grandfathered in?
Great. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Let's keep moving.
Okay.
Thank you.
The next item is K1D, Executive Director's Report, Proposition 19 Implementation Project. Report on, I
Assessment.
apologize.
But you can stay. Give me, I'm gonna- I got-
K1B, Executive Director's Report, Extension of Time to Complete Local Assessment Role. Report on time extension for the counties of Mariposa, Mendocino, and Trinity to complete and submit the 2022 Local Assessment Role pursuant to Revenue and Taxation Code Section 155. This matter will be presented by Ms. Dowers.
Thank you. Members, Revenue and Taxation Code 616 requires the county assessors to annually complete their local assessments rolls by July 1st. Section 155 provides the board or its executive director may extend by 30 days the deadline for any official act by the assessors. In the case of public calamity, the deadline may be extended by 40 days. Section 155 also requires that the executive director inform the board of any such extension at its next regular meeting. This report is to inform you that Mariposa, Mendocino, and Trinity County assessors have requested and have been granted an extension for 30 days to complete their 22 local assessment rolls. That includes my presentation for assessment rolls. Do you have any questions, members?
I don't have any questions. I wanted to comment a little bit about, thank you for your report, about the horrific loss of more than 20 homes in Laguna Niguel in the coastal fire. California's official drought action website is actually stating that this year California has the driest January, February, and March ever recorded, and that warm days melt the snow faster than what is expected. And then on April 1st, this important source of water was down 38% of the average, and it's sadly dropping daily. In mid-May, extreme drought was expanded from covering 40% of the state to 60% of the state. And so the reason why I'm bringing this up is because the extreme drought conditions no doubt help fuel the Laguna Niguel fire. And what's most worrying is that it is highly likely that other destructive fires will erupt in California this summer and this fall. And given that reality, I believe that the Board of Equalization, as an agency, certainly has a standard operating procedures for responding to natural disasters, including wildfires.
Yes, we do.
Yes. Are you able to expand?
We generally, when there's a natural disaster, we partner with the assessors in that area. Wow, we have them here. We will partner with them and to communicate with the property owners on the type of relief that they have that's available to them as far as an extension of file, I'm getting confused with my taxes, additional time to take care of their property tax liability.
Right.
Thank you.
Right.
And we constantly, when it happens, we update our website to inform the public. And within our website, it links them over to their county.
May I jump in? Because I also want to note that the response, statewide response is cooperative and agency-wide, cooperating with other agencies across the entire state to deal with disasters such as the wildfires and then subsequently landslides.
Exactly.
All of which have something to do with property damage. And so given that that we're under this terrible threat, I would like to ask for the Board of Equalization to come back to us with a report, of their standard operating procedures for dealing with mass public disasters like the wildfires, including assistance that we may be able to provide to taxpayers impacted by this public calamity.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you,
I
ladies.
understand that.
I appreciate that. All right, I turn the meeting back over to you.
Okay, well, I think that concludes my presentation, but when Ms. Bernardi speaks, she will kind of piggyback on that when
Great.
it comes to continuation of business.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
The next item is K1C, Executive Director's Report, Operational Priorities, Report on the Status of Operational Priorities. This matter is going to be presented by Ms. Renati.
Okay.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chairman Cohen and honorable members. Today I'll report on some of the agency's operational priorities and projects. As you're aware, the governor's proposed budget for fiscal year 2022-23, released in January, allocated $32.5 million and 193 positions for the BoE. In the recent May revision, there are no changes to our budget and our allocation remains the same. Since our last meeting, we have filled 4 positions. One was a promotion of an internal candidate, and the 3 other were new hires to the Board of Equalization. Currently, we have 72% of our vacancies in active recruitment, and we are continuing to work on this important effort. The next item, as you got a hint about, was our business continuity plan. So annually, we review and update our plan so we're prepared to immediately implement the agency's critical functions following a disaster or other interruption to our operations. This could include a natural disaster like a fire or flood, an earthquake, but it could also be a network failure or a pandemic. In order to limit any potential issues which would adversely affect California and the people we serve, the BoE maintains a comprehensive business continuity plan for all mission-critical functions. The executive management team thoroughly reviewed our mission-critical work, our current work processes, our business resumption plans, and related information. And our updated plan was recently submitted to the Governor's Office of Emergency Services. So we are ready and prepared should there be another issue to deal with. And the last item is regards our updated telework policy. At our last meeting, we introduced that our agency had implemented a new policy which allows our staff to work up to 3 days a week at home. And using this new hybrid model, that is in full implementation starting May 1st, and we have no issues to report. Members, this concludes my operational priorities report. I'm available to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Colleagues, do we have any questions for Ms. Renati?
I do.
I
if
knew
could.
it. That's
Yeah, no, thank you. Can you hear me? Okay, good. Thank you for giving us an update on the hybrid policy that we have, giving employees an opportunity to work out of the home, but also coming into the office a couple of days a week. And remember, you had indicated to me earlier that that program is working well and efficiently. So that was very encouraging to hear. And then I was also wondering, can you highlight the number of positions we've already filled in the last couple of years? I think I thought it was in the 60s, somewhere in that.
I can calculate that really quickly. It's probably about 69 or 68
Yes.
positions since then?
Yes.
Yeah.
And we have folks that are retiring, they're baby
Unfortunately,
boomers, and,
yes, yes.
yeah, and they're getting at that point where they deserve retirement. And so, thank you. I just wanted to highlight the fact of how busy you've been in replacing positions at the BoE. So keep up the good work.
The staff deserves all the credit. They work every week on filling vacancies. We
Thank
report
you.
on them. so
Appreciate
thanks.
that.
I have a quick question. Can you share with us how many employees do not have the opportunity to work from home?
We allow 100% of our employees to work from home.
Thank you. Mr. Vasquez?
Just real quick, thank you for that report, Ms. Renati. I just had two quick questions for you. One of them is kind of piggyback on what Member Gaines just talked about, the telework policy. It's my understanding that it kind of mirrors the state's policy. Is that correct?
The state did come out with a policy encouraging all agencies to embrace telework. Prior to the pandemic, it was rare instances that our agency allowed telework for our property tax department. And since the pandemic, we realized that our people could do work from home and be productive. So we are following the state's plan of allowing telework. We have allowed up to 3 days at home, which is only 2 days a week in the office, which I believe is the norm, but don't quote me on it because I haven't surveyed every agency.
And that kind of leads into the second part of this. Is it much different than it was before COVID-19, our telework policy?
Our policy is different in the fact that we had to determine which positions were eligible for telework. Before, it was more up to the supervisors and managers to decide. And with our plan, we made the policy was changed to allow it to every member of staff. In the past, for instance, a receptionist had to be in the office, and now we found they can take phone calls from home.
And the last question is just, given, that we just gone through this pandemic, and obviously there's been some tweaking and changes and pivoting on what we're doing now, what would you say has been like one of the biggest lessons learned?
I think the biggest lesson learned is that we could have people work at home and still be productive, but we still, of course, recognize the benefit of coming together and have in-person discussions and meetings. You get meetings in person, you get a little more done in some ways and camaraderie than you do when you're all on a video screen, but that we can have people be productive at home.
And you kind of hit on it. I've heard from some people who are saying that in some cases they're probably more productive. And I don't know if that's true, but I was wondering.
I think it would depend on the person.
Okay.
We're all humans. Some of us are better at it than others.
Thank you.
Mr. Eppolite?
This policy is consistent with the telework policy at the Franchise Tax Board.
Oh, it is.
Okay, thank you. Is there anything else?
No,
Okay.
this portion is done.
Okay, great. Thank you. Let's call the next item.
The next item is K1D, Executive Director's Report, Proposition 19 Implementation Project. Report on the status of the agency's Proposition 19 Implementation Project. This
Okay.
matter will be presented by Ms. Renati.
Thank you.
Again, I am Lisa Renati, Chief Deputy Director. Today, I'll provide an update on our Proposition 19 implementation project. A high-level implementation plan is attached to today's agenda. I'm happy to report that the status of BOE's implementation of Prop 19 is green. As you know, our Prop 19 implementation plan project has been in place for about 18 months. Staff continues to ensure taxpayers and stakeholders have the information they need and continue to look for ways to improve our ability to provide information as needed. As you are aware, the BOE has a dedicated webpage regarding Prop 19, which can be accessed through our homepage. As of yesterday, the Prop 19 webpage has received approximately 326,400 unique external page views since we launched the page in November 2020. Of note, this also includes an additional 11,000 unique external page views since my last report in April. This concludes my presentation on this topic. I'm available to answer any questions you have.
Thank you. I'm going to ask that, colleagues, any comments?
Just one quick one.
Okay, go ahead.
Based on this chart, as I'm looking at it in your report, do you see any, I guess looking at the Prop 19 really statistics, do you see any trends developing that we should be aware of moving forward?
The only trend I would see is that we need to continually revisit the information, our forms, our information, to make sure it's up to date, and make sure it's readily understood by everyone, that we're kind of make it into everyday language rather than using highly technical language.
That
And that's
sounds-
what I think, that's what I believe the staff are doing. We work on it every day.
Thank you.
Chiquetti, before we call the next item, could you please find out if we have any public comment on the executive director's reports?
We have not received a request for any in-person speaker and no written comments, but we'll go to the AT&T moderator. AT&T moderator, do we have anyone on the line who'd like to make a public comment regarding this matter?
Thank you very much. And if so, please press 10 at this time. Again, it's 10. And we have nobody in queue at this time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's continue.
The next item is K3A, Property Tax Deputy Director's Report, Operational Updates, and Proposition 19 Implementation Actions and Guidance. Report on the status and pending and upcoming projects, activities, and departmental issues. This item will be presented by Mr. Young.
Thank you, Mary. Good afternoon, Chair Cohen, honorable members of the board. David Young here, Deputy Director of the Property Tax Department. Today, I will give you a report on the operations, activities, and projects in the Property Tax Department. I will start out with the Prop 19 implementation, and then followed by the property tax team for each one of their respective areas. So with Prop 19, the implementation so far, I will cover 4 main items. The top of which is our property tax rules 462.520 and 462.540. Each one of those rules respectively covers the intergenerational transfers and the base year transfers. As you recall, we went ahead and promulgated rules when Prop 19 first passed. We are now in the process of amending those rules to comport with Senate Bill 539 and the implementing statutes of Revenue and Taxation Code 63.2 and 69.6. So that draft language was released by an LTA in March. Initially, comments and feedback from interested parties was due April 29th. We have since received a request from the California Assessors Association for additional time to provide their comments and their feedback. So which we've allowed them to do so. Once we receive those, we will review their comments, their feedback, and incorporate it, if necessary, into our new draft rule. Our goal is to bring it before the board for consideration and action in next month's meeting. So in June, that should be brought back before the board for action. And that is for emergency rulemaking authority granted under SB 539. So the next item I wanted to bring up is staff has updated 7 forms connected with Prop 19, which the board has adopted earlier today. So those 7 forms deal with the application and the benefits for intergenerational and base year transfers. So those actually will become effective, will become effective right away and will be sent to the assessors for their use. The third item is staff continues to handle inquiries from stakeholders, taxpayers, assessors, other industry interested parties. We still get a fair volume of calls from stakeholders with questions on Prop 19, so staff is handling those quickly and efficiently. And the last item I wanted to bring up is our webpage. As Ms. Renati has already mentioned, we do have a dedicated webpage to it. It has basically a whole chronology of all the guidance that we've issued and additional resources. So we have updated aspects of that webpage to comport with the with SB 539. So work continues on that. I suspect that that will be a ongoing project for a little while longer as we go through this full implementation. This should be my report for Prop 19 implementation. I'm available for any questions you may have.
Great work. Let me see. Yes, Mr. Vasquez?
Thank you for your report, and I'm real happy to find out that I guess we were able to address many of the concerns that the assessors had. And I guess my question is more, can you kind of summarize what types of concerns that they had that we were able to address?
Yes, of course. So our property tax rules basically cover a couple of main items. The main items are the administrative end of it, what the application, the filing, that type of process will really entail. I believe there were some questions on that issue. We've drafted the rules so that hopefully they will answer most of those that we can. And we've included more examples in there as to exactly what fits and what does not fit, examples on calculation. And then there were two main things that were put into the new statutes. One had to do with the farms, family farms for intergenerational transfers. Those were included in our rules. And the other one for base year transfers. We also covered a couple items on the base year transfers too. So we're wanting to make sure all stakeholders had a chance to have their comments put in and for us to consider it.
Thank you.
Great. Mr. Schaefer?
Do you ever get a phone call from a taxpayer that does not speak English? How do you deal with that?
Personally, I have not yet. I can't speak for the staff. I'm sure there are some folks that may challenge with English as a main language to communicate. If that is so, our normal recourse would be to go find an interpreter from CDTFA. They usually are our service providers in that arena.
Sure, I guess we may not have it within the agency, but we have contractor locally,
Correct.
of course. I do find many non-speaking Armenian and Asian languages, and thank you.
Of course.
All right.
If I could?
Yes.
Great. Thank you. I just wanted to see if you could clarify on Prop 19 base year value. So we had the wildfire in Laguna Niguel. So wouldn't that allow a base year value as a result where if you were moving, you could move from that location anywhere else in the state and take that base year value with you for the tax base? Am I interpreting it right?
You are absolutely
Okay. All right.
interpreting that correct. Yes, the
Okay.
base year transfer does cover
Okay.
disaster relief.
Okay.
So that
And
is-
those, there are not any benefits on the other side in terms of I call it the death tax, but we have that the reappraisal of property that goes to a child or a grandchild. Those benefits are not extended to these categories of being disabled, wildfire, or age 55. It's just for the base year value.
Correct.
Correct? I just
Yes,
wanna-
yeah.
Yeah.
Two separate programs, two separate statutes, and two separate administration.
I remember we
thereof.
had some feedback from constituents on the
Right.
disabled aspect.
Right,
So I just wanted to clarify that for me and the public. Thank you.
of course.
Mr. Vasquez?
One last question,
course.
and you may address it later, so if you are,
Okay.
stop me and I'll wait. But on the, and it's kind of related to Prop 19, but on ADUs, are we going to be discussing this, are you going to be discussing this a little later? Because I had a question about it, but I'll wait if you are.
I had not planned on discussing ADUs, but if you have a question,
Yeah,
be
but
more
it just
happy to-
happened to come up, and Member Gaines reminded me, when I was listening to his comment, is I was at a resource fair with my assessor, Jeff Prang, over the weekend, and we got a question from one of the fellows in the audience, and apparently he's building an ADU unit, but as it turns out, I guess he's getting close to retirement. So the way the law is written now, it's our understanding, and I'm not sure if we gave him the right information, but is if he travels, now that he's retiring, technically he may not be, that might not be his principal residence if he, let's say, spends a year in Europe or something and then comes back, but has an AD, because the way the ADU unit ordinance is written is that you have to live on the property. Is that correct?
For the base year transfers and for the parent-child, it has to be your primary residence. So it does affect the.
And how do they define, I guess, primary residence? What I'm
The
saying?
primary residence is, there are certain codes that define what a primary residence is. It's the habitual place you tend to return to after you go somewhere. So
So even if you're absent for like a year?
if you're
I was wondering,
absent,
'cause
yeah.
He was asking me, and I didn't
Right.
know what,
So
I'm
if
not
you're-
sure if I gave him the right information.
Yeah, so if you're absent a year, it gets a little murkier. If you're gone for an extended period of time, there are certain things the assessor will ask you for in order to determine whether it is truly your primary place of residence. Usually, they ask for your voter registration, where your car is registered, where you file your taxes, how you declare it on your income tax returns. So there's a couple of things they look at. So just the length of time is not solely determinative as to whether it's your primary place of residence or not.
Thanks.
All right. Thank you for your presentation.
Of course.
Ms. Cicchetti,
Ready to go to the next sub-item?
please.
The next sub-item is letters to assessor, presented by Ms. Schultz.
Good afternoon, Chair Cohen and honorable board members. I am Glenna Schultz, Principal Property Appraiser over the BoE's Assessment Services Unit and the Training and Certification Unit. Today, I will provide you with a brief report on letters to assessors. Attached to the agenda this month is a memo on letters to assessors, which provides a list of the LTAs that have been issued since our last board meeting. In addition, it provides a link to the BoE's website where a list of all LTAs can be found that have been issued to date. As of the date of the attached memo, BoE staff have issued a total of 19 LTAs for calendar year 2022, and 3 of those LTAs have been issued since our last board meeting. Those LTAs are summarized as follows. 2 LTAs to issue assessment practices survey reports for Stanislaus County and Amador County. An LTA which provides the annual increases for the exemption amounts and the household income limit for the disabled veterans exemption to be used for the coming 2023 lien date. This concludes my report on letters to assessors. I'm available to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very much. Let me see, my colleagues have any questions? Nope. I think this is a straightforward presentation. Thank you.
The next sub-item is appraisal, training, and certification, presented by Ms. Schultz.
I will now provide a brief report on the BoE's appraisal, training, and certification program. Since our last board meeting, we have taught one more virtual class of our most requested courses.
Can you tell me what your most requested course is? Can you please remind me? No, it's okay.
I don't
Mr.
have
Young,
a list
Yes, I'd be
available.
more than happy to.
what is the most requested?
The most requested courses are our beginning course. It's our course 1. That's usually the basic training it takes to pass the certification. We have a course 3, which is our basic appraisal course, and our course 5, which is our beginning income course. So those 3 form the core of our most requested. There are others too that are frequently requested, but those are the core,
Thank you.
of course.
So far, during calendar year 2022, we have taught a total of 9 virtual classes and trained a total of 271 students. BoE staff sent out the annual training needs questionnaire to all 58 county assessors training coordinators last month in order to provide the BoE with their training needs for the coming 2022-23 fiscal year. After reviewing the results, BoE staff have been working to set the upcoming 2022-23 fiscal year training schedule, which will include some in-person taught classes as well as some virtually taught classes as part of our process improvement plan. We have also reached out to those county assessor staff who have previously been certified to teach courses for the BoE to see if they are available to teach additional in-person courses for staff, not only in their own counties, but also for staff from other counties. In addition to these classes, we plan on hosting 2 3-hour workshops, one on mineral property and one on taxable possessory interests. These workshops will be hosted via Teams and should be able to accommodate several hundred students. We will also continue to offer our existing online training courses available through American River College and California State University, Sacramento, as well as our online courses available on the BOE's website, plus our self-study training sessions also available on the BOE's website. With this combination of different types of teaching formats being offered and utilizing more staff from other resources, we anticipate being able to far surpass the number of courses offered and the number of students taught in recent years. This concludes my report on training and certification. I am available to answer any questions you may have.
Please.
Tony, do you want to go?
No, go ahead. Mine's more of a comment, so go ahead.
Oh, okay, good. Just wanted to clarify, you mentioned American River Community College and CSUS, you were providing classes. Are those in person, or have they expanded those classes so you could watch them via Zoom or something of that sort?
Both those courses are offered through the university. American River College is part of their regular curriculum.
Okay.
It is a virtual class, but it is taught by a member of the BOE. The course through Sac State is through their continuing education. It is online only. It is not taught by an instructor.
Oh, okay. Are those numbers increasing? I'm just curious as to
I
the
don't have the
online
numbers
nature.
available to me.
Yeah, okay. All right. Is that something we could find out? Because I know that we're tracking how many people are taking the classes. I'm just curious on this particular area, are we seeing a similar increase of students?
We will gather that data and report
Okay.
back to the board. So just as a little bit of history, the online course for the American River Community College, that was developed in about 12, 15 years ago. We were looking for a venue in which to offer a class, that type of class, to assessors' offices without them having to physically be here.
Okay.
So it cut down on their travel. So we were able to do that. We developed the course. It is now a fully, it is in the American River College's system. It's their course. It's in their curriculum. You pay reg fees through them, you register through them, and you actually take it through their platform. The Sac State is actually, as Glenna said, it's our course. We had other assessors ask if there was a more flexible way to do so instead of waiting for a semester to begin and having their folks enroll. So we actually we put that same class into the Sac State system off of their platform. It is our class. That is free. There is no tuition. And that starts it starts every month. Every month it starts a new
Great.
class. So folks that are just hired and need to be certified in order to do ad valorem tax work, they're able to take that class. It's free. It's asynchronous. They can do it at their own pace, and they don't have to wait for an open enrollment. They don't have to wait to make sure there's room for them to be able to get the class. So it's just an offering. We're trying to meet the demand for this class in order to get their certification.
That's great. I'm glad that you're doing that,
Yeah.
making that so readily available. I was just trying to get a handle on, as a result of the pandemic, did that create a surge in students wanting to be taught online?
That's a very interesting question. I will take a look at it. In general, over the last 2 years of the pandemic, community colleges have actually seen a little bit of a decrease in their enrollment. So but that's California-wide. I will get you the specifics on our course itself.
The surge ended when the pandemic did?
Pardon?
Did the surge end when the pandemic ended?
Yeah, I'm hoping it does. I'm hoping it does,
Yeah, thank you.
of course.
Thank you for your report. And mine's more of a comment. I just wanted to thank you, all the assessors that I understand participated and assisted, especially with these offline or online courses, throughout the state. I know my assessor, Jeff Prang, provided some assistance and some expertise with some of his staff, and I just wanted to give a little shout out to these folks. Thank you.
No, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Schaefer?
I had a question for Mr. Young. When we go to the theater and there is a substitute in one of the leading roles, they say that Joe Jones is substituted for Marv Smith, I ask at the pre-briefing, I think this lady does a great job, but I was expecting Miss Lumsden. And it was explained that she might be traveling, and there might be a substitution, but the agenda would be updated. Well, if it was updated, that wasn't what I was given today. Maybe I'm not looking at the right place. And if it wasn't updated, I would like to see an update in the day of the meeting agenda when a major speaker is replaced by another major speaker, both of whom are doing a great job, but I'm just looking at anyone like me that may have somebody they're looking to hear, and we don't know what's going on. Thank you.
Noted, we'll make sure we coordinate with board proceedings.
Okay,
Ready?
thank you. Let's keep moving.
The next sub-item is assessment practices surveys, presented by Ms. Cooper.
Ms. Cooper. Welcome. Welcome, Ms. Cooper.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair Cohen and honorable board members. I am Holly Cooper, Principal Property Appraiser of the BOE's Assessment Practices Survey Unit. Today, I will be giving you a brief report on the assessment practices surveys. For calendar year 2022, we have issued a total of 5 assessment practices survey reports via letters to assessors for the following counties: Santa Barbara and Alameda County in District 2, Sierra, Stanislaus, and Amador County in District 1. In addition to these 5 counties, we are actively working on completing surveys and/or samples for 11 other counties, 6 in District 1, 3 in District 2, 1 in District 3, and 1 in District 4. These surveys and/or samples are in various stages of production. Once completed, a copy of the report is provided to each of the board members and their office for preview before it is issued and posted to our website via an LTA. As part of our process improvement plan, we have begun implementing a hybrid plan for the coming 2022-23 fiscal year, where staff have begun traveling again to conduct their surveys in person while continuing to collect some information remotely as deemed appropriate. We have found that some information is collected more efficiently and less impactful to the assessor when being collected remotely. We plan to work closely with each assessor and their staff to determine the best way to conduct each survey and how to collect the necessary information in the least impactful way. As we begin the implementation process of this hybrid plan, we will monitor the results of the plan closely so we can adjust the plan as needed as we continue to look for ways to improve our program by making it more efficient and more meaningful. This concludes my report on assessment practices surveys. I'm available to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Colleagues? Mr. Vasquez?
Just a quick comment. First of all, I just wanted to thank you for your report, and I know there was a lot of work that went into it that you and your staff collaborated on, and I just want to thank you for the great work you've done on this one. I know it's been a challenge.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you. All right, thank you.
All righty. Our next sub-item is state assessed property, presented by Ms. Cruz.
Good afternoon, Chair Cohen and honorable members. My name is Michelle Cruz, manager of the State Assessed Property Division. Today I will provide information on the status of ongoing work in our division. Now that the board has set the unitary values for the 339 state assessed companies, SAPD will now turn our attention to allocating those total values to the 58 counties in preparation for the state assessed board roll that will come before the board in July. The objective of our allocation of unitary values is to attribute to each county the amount of assessed value that is related as closely as possible to the value of each assessee's unitary property in each county. All of our state assessees will receive a report of how their unitary values are allocated to each county in mid-June. The other area of focus for our division is the private railroad car appraisals. The PRC property statements are due annually on April 30th, and staff are now busy diligently working to complete the appraisals timely. Similar to our state assessed appraisals, the PRC appraisals will go through a series of reviews prior to coming before the board in July for adoption of the private railroad car roll. Thank you, members. That concludes my report for this month. I am available to answer any questions.
Okay. Any questions? Oh, it's pretty,
Thank you.
I'm good.
okay, thank you.
All righty. The next sub-item is welfare exemption process improvement project, which will be presented by Ms. Keach.
Good afternoon, Chair Cohen and honorable members of the board. My name is Lauren Keach, and I'm the manager of the Welfare Exemption section of the Property Tax Department. Today, I'll be presenting on the improvements we're making at the Board of Equalization to the welfare exemption application process and provide you with an update on the Supplemental Clearance Certificate Process Improvement Project. Our purpose for the project is to streamline the process of issuing an SCC for claimants seeking to exempt low-income rental housing from property taxation. The project encompasses a comprehensive review and update to our procedures of the application process, the claims process, and the approval process. Each component has involved discussions and has considered feedback we have received from taxpayers. And during our review of each process, we identified opportunities for improvement and ways to increase efficiency when processing SCC claims. We began with an examination of the application process to create a more clear and user-friendly application process for claimants, which has been completed, and we will continue to monitor to ensure the success of this component of the project. Upon completion of the application process, we moved on to our examination of the claims process with the goal of simplifying and modernizing our procedures to increase efficiency in our internal processing of claims. As a result, we have modernized and improved our internal processing procedure. Since we have completed our modernization of the claims process, we have progressed to our final process of this project, as we are currently working on our examination of the approval process. We began by analyzing the steps required to grant an SCC in accordance with our procedures to identify necessary improvements. Our analysis revealed an opportunity to provide a solution for claimants to submit supplemental claim documents electronically to relieve the inconvenience and delays caused by mailing, and in turn increase efficiency in the approval process. This modernization to our procedure considered direct feedback and suggestions that we have received from taxpayers regarding the burdens of mailing claims and supporting documents. Lastly, this project will also include an analysis and update of our available resources for taxpayers. This will benefit taxpayers by providing more useful information on our website regarding the application process as well as the filing requirements. We also plan to expand our FAQs on our website and provide more questions and answers specifically related to SCCs. Affordable housing is an important matter to the BoE
and we are working diligently to ensure the success of our program in serving organizations that qualify for property tax relief. I'm glad to report that we are making good progress and have made impactful improvements and significant modernizations in our efforts to streamline the SCC process. As we move forward and are nearing completion of this project, we will continue to provide updates and information to allow for visibility into the process and ensure that the board members are kept informed. Members, this concludes my presentation. I'm available to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you for the presentation. I think it was pretty self-explanatory. Mr. Vasquez?
No, great report. But when you hit on something on the affordable housing piece, and I just had this conversation with some folks back home on, where we've been really pushing hard, and several of the members here I know have been doing in their districts respectively, to try to encourage, especially the for-profit developers, to start looking at developing affordable housing. But one of the questions they brought up, which made some sense, and I wasn't sure if it's just a rule change or do we need to go on legislation, and that is that when a developer that's been in the practice of doing market rate housing, for example, is now looking at trying to help meet the demand for the affordable side in California, they're saying they're getting dinged because let's say they take over a building or even a hotel, for example, and they built affordable housing, but it's not a nonprofit. It's a for-profit developer.
Yeah.
They're assessed as if it was market rate housing, even though they may be charging, let's say, it's just an example, $400 or $500 rent, as opposed to maybe $2,000 or $3,000 that they could be charging if it was market rate. But they're being assessed
Right.
as if it was market rate. Is there something that we could do to accommodate that, or?
If I may, if I may respond. No. It is an emerging issue. There are more for-profits now entering the affordable housing market. We have some tools already in our basket, so to speak, in order to address some of it. It's not necessarily under Revenue Taxation Code 214. That's the welfare exemption, which is what our report is on. There may be some other programs that may fit. One that comes to mind is Revenue Taxation Code 236, which is it provides a similar type exemption for affordable housing, but it's not exactly the same as 214. So it's a broader conversation. We have some tools, but it's not nearly enough to cover all aspects at this point.
Well, it's funny you mentioned, I was trying to see if I can find the number.
Right.
They were saying it was possibly under Government Code Section 110, 110.1 that could be adjusted. I don't know if that's true.
110.1 deal with what they consider fair market value. It defines what fair market value is for property tax purposes. There are 110.1 perhaps, if they're looking into how they're being assessed, probably 402.1 would be a little bit more fruitful. That deals with fair market value for taxation purposes, but as restricted. So if you're restricted to low-income housing, there may be a provision in there that covers it. So be more than happy to explore any of that.
Yeah, they have their legal folks, and I told them to give me as much information as you can. I'll pass it on and see if there's something that we could do through a rule change or something without getting into the whole legislative process, because I know that's timely and could take years, right?
Yes, it's a long process.
Thank you.
Of course.
Other questions? Yes, Mr. Gaines?
Great. Yeah, I just wanted to thank Ms. Keach for working on this exemption process improvement project. And I was just wondering if maybe you could give us a little overview in terms of the benefits to our constituents. So from a constituent standpoint that's filling out an application, what what will happen that will improve the process from their perspective?
Well, I think the goal of this project is really considering their perspective and getting them timely certificates. So reducing delays and processing times is a big goal of this project that we are making progress on, as well as simplifying it on their end, having more clear information and instructions from the beginning as provided on our form and on the website, so that it's more of a clear process for them going into it, and then they get their forms or certificates in a timely manner, so.
Okay.
That's
And
our goal.
so would these be downloadable forms?
They are downloadable from our website, yes.
Yeah, okay. Very good. Thank you.
Thank you for that question.
One last one.
Mr.
And this is
Vasquez.
going back to you, Ms. Keach. You know, when you're talking about, as you're, I guess, modifying and updating these forms, the assessor forms on the exemption, is that something we're looking to possibly update here soon?
So we're processing our forms that we issued, the organizational and supplemental certificates, supplemental clearance certificates, which is a different form than the form that's actually filed with the county assessor's office. So at this time, this project is specifically related to the supplemental clearance certificate form that we issue.
But down the road, you think we're going to get to that, or maybe that's more of a question for?
If I may
Sure.
chime in, yes. It's a board, that form you speak of for the actual application. As you well know, the welfare exemption, it's co-administered. We do the entity, the assessors do the real property. The form in which they submit to the assessors to exempt that piece of real property, that's also a board-prescribed form. It is amongst the many that we look at annually and provide updates. We look at them continuously on a yearly basis. So if there's any improvements, anything they need to do on that, we'd be more than happy to take a look at it and amend.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, Ms. Keach.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lauren.
All righty, the next item on the agenda is K3B 4R Act Equalization Ratio for fiscal year 2022-23. Adoption of the 4R Act Equalization Ratio for the current fiscal year ensures that rail transportation property is assessed at the same percentage of market value as all other commercial industry property. This item is presented by Mr. McCool.
Good afternoon, Chair Cohen and honorable members of the board. I am Jack McCool, Chief of the State Assessed Properties Division. The item before you is the 4R Act Equalization Ratio. The 4 Rs stand for Railroad Revitalization and Regulatory Reform Act, which was enacted by Congress in 1976. Revenue and Taxation Code Section 1817 requires the board to annually conduct a study to determine the statewide and county-by-county ratio of assessed value to fair market value of commercial and industrial real property. The Legislative Research and Statistics staff conducted this year's study using the 2020-2021 property roll, and it yielded an estimated statewide ratio of 56.05%. This is a decrease of 2.74 percentage points from last year's ratio. Staff recommends that the board assess rail transportation property at 56.05% of the market value for the 2022 roll. I'm available to answer any questions that you may have and ask for your adoption of this year's ratio. Thank you.
All right. Colleagues, do you have any questions? Because if you don't, we can go ahead and go to public comment. Go to public comment, Ms.
Yeah. We have not received a request for any in-person speaker and no written comments on this item, but we will go to the AT&T moderator. AT&T moderator, do we have anyone on the line who would like to make a public comment regarding this item?
And if so, please press 1 and then 0 at this time. And currently nobody in queue.
Okay, great. I'd like to make a motion to adopt the staff recommendation on setting the 2022-2023 4R Act equalization ratio. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Vasquez. Let's do a roll call vote.
The motion is to adopt the 2022-23 4R Act equalization ratio as presented by staff. Chair Cohen,
Aye.
Vice Chair Schaefer,
Aye?
Member Gaines,
Aye.
Member Vasquez,
Aye.
Deputy Controller Epelite.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Great, thank you very much. Please call the next items.
The next item is K4A, Legislative Research and Statistics Division's Chief Report, Legislative Issues, Update on the Administrative and Program-Related Legislative Bills Impacting the BoE. This item will be presented by Mr. Weatherby.
So good afternoon, Chair Cohen, Vice Chair Schaefer, and honorable members of the board. This is Dustin Weatherby, Chief of the Legislative Research and Statistics Division. Board members, prior to moving to the PAN attachment, I'm going to highlight a few of the upcoming legislative deadlines. So the legislature just passed their fiscal committee deadline for bills introduced in their House on Friday, May 20th, and now approach this week's House of Origin deadline for bills introduced in their House on May 27th. Bills that do not meet these deadlines will no longer be in consideration for the legislative year. So I will now move on to the PAN attachment, which includes a summary of legislation affecting the Board of Equalization that is still pending in the legislature. The first bill I want to highlight is Senate Bill 440 by Senator Dodd. SB 440 was amended on May 18th to include the board-sponsored legislative proposal to expand the definition of disaster to include infectious disease, which would authorize the board to provide a 3-month deadline extension for reports or payment of tax under the alcoholic beverage tax program for situations similar to the COVID-19 pandemic. As you may recall, the BoE was unable to provide a 3-month deadline extension to taxpayers since the current definition of disaster was interpreted to not include a situation like COVID-19. As a result, the BoE was reliant upon governor-issued executive orders for deadline extensions. This bill will provide the BoE narrow administrative flexibility and nimbleness to assist taxpayers in these circumstances. The bill is currently set for hearing in the Assembly Revenue and Taxation Committee on June 6th, and I will continue to update the board as necessary on the progress of the bill. The second bill is Senate Bill 1494 by the Senate Governance and Finance Committee, which contains one of the board-sponsored legislative proposals to amend Revenue and Taxation Code Section 97.68 relating to a sales tax augmentation fund to correct references of Board of Equalization to the California Department of Tax and Fee Administration. The bill passed the Senate unanimously on April 28th and is currently pending in the Assembly Revenue and Taxation Committee. The next bill is Assembly Bill 1206 by Assemblymember Bennett, which will require that a rental unit continue to be treated as occupied by a lower-income household when the income of those occupants increases up to 140% of the area's median income, if the owner is a community land trust whose land is leased to low-income households for the fiscal years 2022-23 through 27-28. The board voted at the February board meeting to support AB 1206. The bill passed the Assembly on January 31st and will be heard in the Senate Governance and Finance Committee on June 1st. Assembly Bill 1733 by Assemblymember Quirk, which will provide the flexibility for state agencies to hold meetings via teleconferencing, has been double referred to the Assembly Governmental Organization Committee and the Business and Professions Committee. The bill is unlikely to pass by the House of Origin deadline this Friday. And board members, I will now conclude with an update on Proposition 19. No bills have been introduced or amended relating to the implementation of Proposition 19. The only measure still pending is Assembly Constitutional Amendment 9 by Assemblymember Kevin Kiley, which seeks to repeal several provisions of Proposition 19 regarding intergenerational base year transfer exemptions and instead reinstates the prior rule. The bill has not been referred to the committee, and the last day to place a measure on the November 2022 ballot is June 30th. Additionally, Initiative 21-0015, the Proposition 19 initiative filed by the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association, has officially failed after not enough signatures were gathered to place the initiative on the November 2022 ballot. The initiative would have, among other things, repealed the intergenerational transfer exclusion and would have increased the $1 million exclusion amount. So this will conclude my presentation on this item, and I am available to answer any questions you may have.
Mr. Vasquez?
Yes. First, thanks for the update, and I just had a question in regards to SB 1456, I guess it's Senator Stern's bill, on removing the $20 million cap for welfare exempt low-income rental housing. Does this mean that if the bill goes through, that a nonprofit organization that owns and operates a low-income rental housing property and does not receive any government financing or low-income housing tax credits would be able to get the welfare exemption for the entire property, even if it's assessed at more than 20 million?
So thank you for that question, Board Member Vasquez. So the entity would still have to meet the requirements for the exemption on firsthand. And if they have any property that exceeds the current $20 million assessed value cap, this removal of the cap would allow them to receive the exemption beyond that assessed value amount.
On that. And then I had another question regarding AB 1933, I believe it is. It's the Friedman bill. And on low-income housing for first-time homebuyers, the BoE analysis states that the April 20th amendments removed eligibility for the welfare exemption if the units were sold to moderate income homebuyers, which means that the exemption will apply only to nonprofit organizations who sell only to a first-time low-income homebuyers. Why does our analysis say that although the revenue impact is not predictable, there may be a revenue gain over the years?
So the BoE was contacted by the bill's sponsor, the Heritage Housing Partners, and they provided the BoE with some data on housing developments they have done exclusively in Los Angeles County. They provided the time of construction, the amount of assessed value of the property, and the assessed value of the property after it was rehabilitated and ultimately sold to first-time homebuyers. As you know, over time, with Proposition 13, if a unit is sold for, let's say, $300,000, that creates the 1% rate, so a $3,000 tax bill, and over time, that can increase with inflation up to 2% annually. So over time, as long as those units are continually sold or bought, that's going to continually increase the amount of property tax that the county would receive over time. So while it may be $3,000 in the first year, it could be $3,100 in the second year, and so on and so forth. So currently, with the welfare exemption for rental units, if a nonprofit rents that unit, it's not creating that additional tax revenue because the renter doesn't pay any Proposition 13 property tax. Whereas when a new homeowner is created, that's a new taxpayer, and if you create 40 units out of a building that only had one unit prior, that's essentially creating 3 units. So over time, the exemption that would have been granted during the course of construction could be offset by those annual revenue gains.
On an annual basis, I see.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any questions or comments down on this end? Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I ask one?
Oh, sure.
Yeah, maybe it's speculative, but can you speak to the effort on the initiative to recreate the exemption for the intergenerational transfer of property? You said it had failed. So is that going to be extended? Yeah, it was Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association that was working on that. Is there any effort to gather signatures for the 2024 election cycle?
That I'm unsure of, Board Member.
Yeah, okay.
Their signature deadline just passed, and they reached the 25% threshold. How many they were able to collect, I'm not quite sure. Whether they're going to move forward with a potential initiative in 2024, I haven't heard any news on that front.
Yeah, okay. Very well, thank you.
Just a quick question, if
Go
I
ahead.
can, Madam Chair. Along those lines, well, I guess are they still counting those signatures? Because somebody was mentioning to me that, I know the goal was like 400,000 or something, but I heard they turned in possibly 200,000. And if they are valid 200,000 signatures, doesn't that entitle them to a hearing?
So the amount of signatures that this particular initiative would have required was something like 997,000.
Oh,
And from my understanding is they didn't even reach that threshold. So the amount of signatures they would have submitted, I don't think would have allowed them an opportunity to get a hearing. because they wouldn't have met the minimum threshold.
Or is the minimum 200,000? That's what I heard. I wasn't sure if that was.
No, so the threshold to qualify the actual initiative was 997,000 signatures.
No, that's to get it on the ballot, though,
Yes.
isn't it? But I thought for a hearing, it's a lot less.
That could be. I'm unfamiliar with that elections code, but from my understanding on what was reported is they still didn't have enough signatures to even qualify the initiative, so I don't know why they would want to do a hearing if they didn't have the necessary signatures to get it on the ballot for this year.
If I'm not mistaken, I think that Howard Jarvis sent out a press release saying that they didn't reach the threshold, and it's probably on their website.
Even for a hearing?
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, I don't know. It didn't specify for a hearing or not.
No, I know
but-
they didn't reach the threshold to get it on the ballot, but I didn't even know this, but somebody mentioned to me that even though, like you said, it was 900,000, if you turned in 200,000 good ones, it entitles you, the group, to have a hearing. And you may know, Senator, on the Senate floor. I didn't know that. I never heard that.
Yeah, I'm not sure on that threshold for the number of votes.
Okay.
I know that there's a 30-day clause upon gathering the signatures where the legislature can take a look at it.
As a possible public hearing.
Yeah, because maybe it could be amended or adjusted, so that's kind of new in the last few years, but.
I haven't heard of it.
Okay,
Thank you.
let's keep going. Thank you.
Before we go, we need to go to the AT&T operator to see if we have
Thank
any
you.
public comments on this item. We have not received a request for any in-person speaker and no written comments, but we go to the AT&T moderator. AT&T moderator, please let us know if there's anyone on the line who'd like to make a public comment regarding this item.
Yes, thank you. If so, please press 10 at this time. And currently nobody in queue.
Well, yeah, I couldn't find this anywhere on the agenda.
Okay.
All righty?
Please go to the next item.
The next item is K5A, Taxpayer Rights Advocate Office Report, Operational Update, Update on Activities of the Taxpayer Rights Advocate Office, including Proposition 19, Education and Outreach, and other matters. This matter is being presented by Ms. Thompson.
Good afternoon, Chair Cohen and honorable board members. I'm Lisa Thompson, Chief of the Taxpayer Rights Advocate Office, and I'm here today to provide you with an update on the activities of the Taxpayer Rights Advocate Office and Proposition 19 Education and Outreach to keep you informed. First, I would like to share with you some statistics on the number of cases that our office completed in April, and also to share with you some information about those cases to provide some insight on them. This month, attached to the public agenda notice is a memorandum from to our executive director reporting the number of completed and resolved cases by the TRA office that is given by board member district, which distinguishes the cases between administrative versus evaluation category and by category, by topic within those categories. In April 2022, we completed 24 cases. 7 were in Board Member Gaines's district, District 1, 7 in Member Cohen's district, District 2, 4 in Member Vasquez's district, District 3, and 6 were in Board Member Schaefer's district, District 4. Of the 24 completed cases, 7 were in the administrative category and 17 were from the valuation category. The administrative category includes topics such as creating and mailing tax bills, refunds, penalty cancellations, access to data, special assessments, and direct levies on the property tax bill. The valuation category includes topics such as change in ownership, declines in value, appraisal methodology, exemptions, new construction, actual enrollment of value, general property taxation, and assessment appeals. With respect to the administrative category, and it's 7 cases in total, 3 pertain to access to data, 2 involved delinquent or defaulted property taxes, 1 pertained to penalties, and 1 involved refunds. With respect to the valuation category, and it's 17 in total, 2 pertain to assessment appeals, 3 involve change in ownership, 2 pertain to enrollment of values, 5 cases addressed exclusions for reassessment, 3 cases involved exemptions, and 2 cases involved general property taxation. To provide some additional insight on the specific types of exclusion and exemption cases, I will offer this further breakdown. For the 5 cases involving exclusions from reassessment, 3 pertain to base year value transfer exclusions for persons age 55 and over. 1 involved base year value transfer for disaster relief, and 1 pertained to the parent-child exclusion. 3 of these 4 base year value transfer exclusion cases occurred before the April 1st, 2021 effective date for Proposition 19's base year value transfer provisions. And the 1 parent-child exclusion fell under the provisions of prior law, Proposition 58, since the transfer occurred before February 16, 2021. Thus, only 1 of these 5 exclusion cases fell under the purview of Proposition 19, and that was a base year value transfer for someone age 55 and over. For the 3 exemption cases, 2 pertain to the welfare exemption and 1 for the disabled veterans exemption. To provide some additional insight on the nature of the cases that our office works with and to help taxpayers, I would like to offer some additional information on a case that our office worked on and how we assisted the taxpayer. An example of this case that our office helped to resolve involved a taxpayer and his request for a base year value transfer from one county to another. And due to the timing of this taxpayer's purchase and sale, it fell under prior law before Proposition 19. However, the situation can still apply today. The taxpayer was concerned because he was denied a base year value transfer from one county to another, and he was concerned that he was paying more property taxes than he was paying on his original property. The assessor denied the base year value transfer because the assessed value of his replacement home was already lower than the factored base year value of his original home. Had the base year value transfer request been granted, both the assessed value and the property taxes of the replacement home would have actually been higher than his original home. Additionally, had the assessor's office accepted the base year value transfer, then they would have been assessing the replacement property at more than market value, which would not comply with law. We provided information to the taxpayer on the base year value transfer provisions of Proposition 90 and Revenue and Taxation Code Section 69.5, and explained that what is transferred with the base year value is actually the factored base year value of the original home, and it is not the actual amount that is paid on the property tax bill that transfers. We explained that the assessor was correct in denying the base year value transfer, and that if the assessor had accepted it, then the assessed value would have been much higher, as well as the amount that he paid on his property tax bill. In addition to analyzing the assessed value of the properties, the original and the replacement, we examined the property tax bill for each of those properties. When we examined his property tax bill for the replacement property, we discovered that there was a substantial amount of special assessments that were on there. Those are non-ad valorem property taxes beyond the tax rate. And so we explained to the taxpayer that special assessments, although collected on the property tax bill, are not ad valorem taxes. And instead, they result from voter-approved initiatives. So we explained that to the taxpayer, helped him understand that if there was an exemption available for that special assessment from either as a person age 65 and over, or low income, that would be part of what was voted in for that initiative, and that he could reach out to the city or county agency based on the phone number on the tax bill for that special assessment. So that is how we assisted that taxpayer in understanding that. So the next item that I would like to report on to the members is work associated with Proposition 19, education and outreach. And with respect to education specific to each of the areas within Proposition 19, the TRA office will issue an information sheet on each of those. The TRA office has completed work on 2 of the information sheets topics anyway, parent-child exclusion and grandparent-child exclusion under Proposition 19, current law, and we have also updated our existing information sheets on the parent-child and grandparent-child exclusion under prior law because those occurrences are still happening. We will have two of each of the information sheets available. Those information sheets have been sent to our forms and publications sections for publication, and they should be out shortly. I will advise the members as they are published, as well as the California Assessors Association, so assessors are aware of them, so they can advise their constituents and link to our pages. Additionally, the TRA office has drafted new information sheets on the base year value transfer provisions for persons age 55 and over and disabled persons under Proposition 19, as well as revised the existing sheets for prior law. And these information sheets are currently in the internal review process and will be sent to forms and publications shortly. The next item I would like to update the members on is work associated to prepare for the upcoming Taxpayer Bill of Rights hearing scheduled for August 30th, 2022. Posters and flyers publicizing the events have been printed, and we will be sending them to county agencies involved in the property tax systems at the beginning of June. This year, you all have posters and flyers, so you can see them, and please, feel free to pass them on. The poster has a QR code on it this year that people can hold their cell phone up and link to our agency's website so they can readily see the information about the hearing. It is similar to what some restaurants have to access menus. The communications officer and I, Peter Kim, are also working together to promote the upcoming hearing and prepare some sort of toolkit for members to further the outreach for the hearing. And I will be updating the members at future meetings about those items. To increase exposure, we included additional information on the main TRA Bill of Rights website, enabling taxpayers to more readily access the page where they can subscribe to receive email notifications. It is a listserv, and it will be used this year to send email notifications to taxpayers about the hearing and provide specific details on how, so they know how to participate or what to view on the hearing later this year. Again, future meetings, I will update the members on the progress toward all of this. And that concludes my update. I'm available for any questions.
Thank you. I wanted to ask, I know you've been doing this for a long time. Are there any lessons learned that you have seen, maybe we'll say the last 3 years that we've been working together, that you're applying to this year?
I think we always try to strive to kind of get the word out as much as we can on the Taxpayer Bill of Rights hearing. So we are always exploring different avenues. We have an advisory council that was started last year, and so we will be providing information to each of those advisory council members and asking that they do additional outreach. We've also added different taxpayer organizations that I reach out to ask that they notify their membership over the course of the year. So yeah, we're always striving to do that. We've done public service announcements and things of that nature. At the next meeting, at least the next couple of months, we'll be gearing up more toward additional publicity for that meeting. So I'll be updating the members on that.
Thank you. Any questions on this? Yes, Mr. Schaefer?
I have a question, but I'd like to direct it to Mr. Nanjo. We see quality work by our taxpayer advocate, but we see more of her than we do of most anybody else. And I would like to ask what is required by our adopted rules or legislation as to what is told to us by the taxpayer advocate. One of her favorite sayings is, I would like to update the taxpayers on this or that. The first period of time she was here today, we have number of completed cases, number resolved, number closed, and valuation cases, and she went through these as to the number of issues before her, and I thought that that was very helpful to see how busy she was. But then she went into another era I'd like to update on. Well, is that because she wants to put some frosting on the cake after we've had the essentials? She does a good job at it, but we're not sitting in an appellate mode here. We're not subject to having somebody who may not be happy with what she's telling us to ask us to review it. I don't know if we have jurisdiction to review it or appeal it. I think we're just hearing that she's been doing a good job and how many cases she's working on. And if she's not required to give such an expensive report, I would like to know as a legal matter that maybe the first 15 or 20 minutes that she gives us a report, we are legally informed. And if people want to know which of these 17 cases or 24 cases that they may be interested in, they go on our website, or they can go someplace. It's like you can go to the court clerk's office in the Superior Court if you want to look at the details on any of these cases. I don't think the presiding judge is going to want to be informed on the details of these cases. I think the presiding judge is want to be informed that we're doing 300 cases a month, or what we're doing if we're working judges. And I, sitting here, I think I'm less of a judge and more of a administrative judge, wanting to know how hard she's working, and we get that in the first 10 or 15 minutes. But then we start getting a legal education on the details of the cases that we can't do anything about other than say, we're doing important work, but we know that. So I would like the chief counsel to advise our Ms. Stowers, who can speak for our taxpayer advocate, and decide that she's got to tell us both how hard she's working and then tell us what all the cases are about. I would rather be able to go online and figure out all the details if I'm bored and have more time, but all of us up here have so much to read, and, I'm trying to make our input here more related to what the Constitution and the Charter and the rules and the legislature has said we got to do. Because if I want to do stuff more than we got to do, I want to go out to these hearings and answer questions and provide my services there. And, I've said something like this before. And,
Thank you, Vice Chair. I know you addressed your question to Chief
Sure.
Counsel, but I believe it's more appropriate to me to respond. Ms. Thompson is the taxpayer rights advocate. She is the first-line person dealing with property tax owners and their issues. She is providing you guys with an update on the issues because it's very important that you guys hear what's going on, and it's also important for the public to know what we're doing. So that's why she gave you the stats as a starting
Ms.
point.
Stowers, the public can get it all by going to the website.
No,
They
no,
don't
sir,
need
they
to-
cannot. The key here is the stuff that she's doing is confidential. So she's not going to put on the website, John Doe taxpayer came to the office and had ABC as a question, and this is how I resolved it. She is giving you guys a verbal update, but she's not identifying the taxpayer she's been.
Everything she said today is not any more secret. It's
Exactly, but she is providing an update to the board members because the collective body has asked for information on our operations, and that's what she's attempting to do. I understand that it could be a little heavy, especially when it's coming towards the end of the day. We've tried to make some adjustments already as far as the short memo, and perhaps we can make other adjustments because it is important information, and I believe you all would like to hear it. So maybe we change the order
What if?
of
what
when
if-
we do it.
Okay. I mean,
What
Mr. Schaefer, you've made, I think you've made your point.
The whole thing.
You don't want to hear it. I get it. But this is an incredibly important venue because it's not just about us
agree.
receiving
I
information,
agree.
but it's for the larger public. And what's interesting is I'm on the other side. I'd like to hear more. I want to hear as much detail as possible so that we are maybe the second most informed, you and your staff being the most informed as to what kind of guidance and work that we need to continue to do for taxpayers. I think that there's significant work occurring in this organization and that we've worked really hard to bring it forward. And this is just another venue. The website is one way, but remember, not everyone has internet access. In Mr. Gaines' district in particular, there's internet access is not accessible for everyone. And so we need to be careful about some of the assumptions that we're making. And I think Ms. Stowers has offered a healthy happy medium about reorganizing it. And I'm happy to talk to you a little bit more about that and work with your staff, Mr. Schaefer, on what that would actually would look like. But want to make sure that we affirm Mrs. Thompson's work, that it's important. And want to give you an opportunity. Would you like to share some of your thoughts or answer Mr. Schaefer's questions? I know he kind of went to your superiors and really didn't give you an opportunity, but if you'd like to speak on it, you're welcome. And you don't have to if you don't want to.
Yeah, I think maybe it would be helpful to clarify. I mean, we use the term completed cases. That's how we refer to them, as a case, because we are helping taxpayers. They come to us with a problem that they're having, and we assist them in, resolving that. I'm not an attorney, our staff are not an attorney, and it's not like we're going before a judge of any kind, or that I'm an arbitrator and that can demand, say, an assessor's office do a particular task. Our function is to work with the taxpayer, understand the situation, and then help facilitate resolution of that, whether that be through helping them understand the law better and why they were treated the way they were by the assessor's office or tax collector's office, or whether that be by us contacting either the tax collector's office or the assessor's office, to try to, come to a solution, to arrive at a solution for them. So it's not an attorney, it's not us we're not an appeal body that says, this is your value. We don't arrive at values, we do those things. So maybe the case term must have caused confusion.
I want to make sure we don't get caught up on semantics. I mean,
So, yeah, yeah.
let's-
And
we
we don't
wanna-
have it on our website, nothing on our website.
Madam
Only-
Chair,
Yes,
I'd
sir.
like to say I'm all for some more information, too. I would be pleased if you would take these 24 completed cases and write 50 to 100 words about each one, and it might add another 2 or 3 pages to the agenda, maybe only a page or two if you just write the little basics, so I can read it, when I'm not in session and having to listen, and I can say, hey, case number 2424 looks interesting. I can go online or go to your office and read the whole thing if I want.
Yeah, that's
So
really
I'm all for
confidential
more
information, I
education,
think.
but I just don't want to be getting more than I'm required to get. If we're trying to do it for the whole public, I'd say great if we know the public's interested in looking at that, but I would think what the public's interested in is seeing how busy you are, and you do a great job with that. And I would like to know a little bit more about the individual cases, because I'm not making notes when you're talking. But again, there's nothing I can do about the cases. I'm not a judge.
Thank you.
That is true, yes. But I will comment, though, if you don't mind, so that information is very confidential. I mean, a couple of things among taxpayers, we're looking at appraisal records. We're looking at the confidential information the taxpayer approaches to us. So you know, we don't disclose the names of the taxpayers that come to our office. The exception would be like at the August Bill of Rights hearing, when there are public presenters. They do identify their names when they come before this board, and so it's attached to the public comments. You know, those would be identified, but I do describe for you in a meeting how, you know, we responded to each of those taxpayers in a meeting, but.
If you had a place on the form where the taxpayer could say, I waive my rights of confidentiality, then, because a lot of taxpayers don't really care, and nobody's going to make a movie out of their issue, you know.
Okay, well, let's see what Mr. Gaines has to say.
Well, thank you. I want to thank you for this breakdown of this report, because I was asking for more information in writing that we would have, and you've done that, so I really appreciate that. I also just wanted to comment about our Bill of Rights hearing and the fact that you've got a QR code. I just tested it out. It's
It worked?
working, so that's good. So just keep up the good work, and I think, yeah, I kind of fall on the side of, I'd like to even have more information, but I want to be careful of confidentiality and make sure we're not violating anybody's privacy. So I like what you're doing, and keep it up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Vasquez?
Just a quick question. Once again, thank you for the report, and I really appreciate the hard work that you and your team have done, especially on the outreach and the educational thing that we've been talking for, many years now here, since I've been on here, and the fact that we have this fair coming up. I just had more of out of curiosity, how many calls or emails that come through your office that are more, that I guess are not processed in cases, that get, let's say, pitched into maybe the legal department or referred to property and tax? Do we know that?
Yeah, we have, you know, we have calls or contacts from taxpayers that we redirect, I mean, to a lot of agencies. I mean, we generally probably between, you know, about 10 a month, you know, we have that we direct to other agencies. Those are more web inquiries or contacts we receive through emails and things. But we generally, you know, we coordinate with the property tax department if we receive, you know, more of a technical inquiry, technical question, and then we redirect it. So I'll either forward it to management there and ask that they call them. We generally, unless somebody's answering the phone, my office technician, when she answers the phone, she would tell them that's really a question for the property tax department and give them the phone number. But what we do, if they contact us by email, then I just forward it on to management, and then they handle it from there. So, yeah.
No, I appreciate it, because I know
varies.
we've sent several requests to your office from our office, and I haven't had anybody complain coming back, so whatever you're doing, it seems to be working.
Yeah, and we coordinate with your chief deputy when, after we've assisted the taxpayer, we let your staff know.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the continued good work of you and your team.
Thank you.
All right. Does that conclude your presentation?
It does.
Appreciate it. Thank you
Oh,
very
well,
much.
we need to go to the
Yes.
public to see if we have any comments. We have not received any requests, any in-person speaker, and no written comments on this item, but we'd like to go to the AT&T moderator. AT&T moderator, please let us know if there's anyone on the line who'd like to make a public comment on this item.
Yes, thank you. If you would, please press 10 at this time. And currently nobody in queue.
All righty.
Great. Thank you very much.
The next item is
Just a second, please.
Madam Chair, I did not at any point indicate she's not doing a good job. I just was wanting to know if we're getting a little more information.
Understood.
But I like the work she's doing, and I agree with
Understood.
people
No,
there.
that's good.
Thank you. Mr. Ketty, please call the next one.
The next item is M1, Public Policy Hearings, Discussion on Implementation of Prop 19, the Home Protection for Seniors, Severely Disabled Families, and Victims of Wildfire or Natural Disasters Act of 2020.
Thank you. Mr. Ketty, do we have any comments from the public who wish to speak on this item?
I have two items that were received in writing that I'll read into the record, though our procedure is to go out to the public comment first, and then I'll read the items in into the record.
Please.
AT&T moderator, could you let us know if we have anybody on the line who'd like to make a public comment on this item? AT&T moderator? Could you let us know if we have anybody on the line who'd like to make a public comment? I'm going to read the comments into
Please
the
do,
record.
thank you.
Yes. We've received 2 comments in writing. I'm going to read the first one. M1 Proposition 19 Implementation, comment, first submission for May 2022. Hello, I have a concern about the provision of Prop 19 that raised the excluded amount prior to a parent's death for heirs that would like to eventually inhabit their parent's home. From what I understand, the excluded amount will adjust each year based on the movement in the house price and the house price index for California from the prior calendar year. As it's written, every February 16th, it will look back at the previous year to adjust the excluded amount. My concern is that this does not begin to happen until February 16th, 2023, which is 2 years after Prop 19 law became law. Under this scenario, it will never adjust for 2021, since it only looks back 1 year. 2021 was a significant year for price appreciation in California. If I'm viewing the correct report, it states that the house price index for California rose 19.62% in 2021, which I believe was a record increase. In real terms, this could have raised an excluded amount from $1 million to almost $1.2 million in just the first year, while saving property taxpayers almost $2,000 per year in the future after their parent's death if they move into the family home. While this may not seem like a significant amount for some people, for lower-income people, I would assume that this amount could be the difference between hanging on to the generational home versus being taxed out of it. Instead of receiving a larger excluded amount, they will simply have to pay property taxes on an extra 19.62% in value. As it stands, not only are families being hit with the surprise of Prop 19, but also missing out on a rather significant hike in the excluded amount due to the way Prop 19 was written. My first question is, am I reading this correctly? My second question is, was this Prop 19's intent? It's hard to believe that the intent was for the taxpayers to have the potential exposure to the burden of Prop 19 for 10 and a half months, 2021, but at the same time, not have the potential to benefit from a potentially high excluded amount for the entire year. My third question is, could this potentially be amended? Prop 19 has blindsided a lot of people that may have a home in their family, but not the income that Prop 19 will require to remain in the home after the home is transferred from the parent to child. We can use all the help we can get if some sort of amendment is justifiable and possible. The question I ask above is referenced from this statement contained in a BoE document. 1, on February 16th, 2023, and every other February 16th thereafter, the $1 million amount described in subdivision C1B of this rule shall be adjusted by the same percent change in the house price index for California for the prior calendar year as determined by the Federal Housing Finance Agency. I found the above referenced comments on the in this BoE document. http://www.boe.ca.gov/LTA21054.pdf. Last, I have found one resulting positive from Prop 19. I now know about the BoE and the board's function. I can tell you all how assured I am to know that this body exists. Thank you for everything that you do. Sincerely, Vaughn McGuire.
I have a quick question. Ms. Towers, directing it towards you, would it be appropriate to ask Mr. Young to write or call this commenter back to answer the 3 questions that she's laid out?
Yes.
We would,
We have the information.
I believe Ms. Cicchetti does have the contact information, just to answer. Mr. Young, are you there? Oh, Mr. Young, if you don't mind. It sounds like it'd be pretty easy and straightforward. The answers to the questions that she's posing are pretty standard, spelled out in the legislation, as well as information on the website about the implementation, how it came about, and what was the intent. And please direct her to her elected representative in the legislature. Is there another one?
Yes, there is.
Please.
M1, Proposition 19 implementation, second submission for May 2022. Hello. Last month, I submitted a letter that stated my concerns as it relates to a small property landlords that face large reassessments in areas like San Francisco after a parent's death as a result of Prop 19. The concern was that heirs will be taxed at current levels after their parent's death, while their respective long-term tenants are paying rents that look more like 2005 as a result of a stringent rent control. We have had the same tenants for 27 years that pay roughly 50% market rate rent due to the effect of long-term rent control in SF. However, I still face a large reassessment after my mother's death. This scenario has already started to upend pre-1986 units in San Francisco that are covered under stringent rent control. Not only are the heirs being taxed out of business in units that have long-term, low-rent tenants, but the tenants are being displaced as well after the point of sale. Realtors have told me that the tenants are losing their low-rent housing due to owner move-in evictions and potentially even Ellis Acts. The board suggested that I contact my local assessor and ask why I stand to be reassessed in the future after my mother's death, since we're providing affordable housing for our tenants. I did this. The answer I received was that our family duplex is not coded specifically to be for affordable housing, and that the low rents are simply the result of the SF Rent Board only allowing for small annual rental increases over a long period of time. The person I spoke with in the assessor's office actually suggested that I reach back out to the board with an additional question. The question being, how is it legal for the SF Rent Board to not allow me to raise my rents after my mother's passing to offset materially higher operating costs, such as a large property tax reassessment? She explained that an ordinance was passed in SF a few years ago that prevented rent hikes due to a property tax reassessments. But this was done to combat new purchases of rental properties from raising rents when they knowingly bought a building with lower rents. To contrast this, the SF Rent Board is treating heirs in the same way that they were new purchases of rental properties. The difference being that the heirs didn't knowingly enter into an agreement when they were where they were paying 2022 property tax rates while receiving very low rents. No sane person would enter in the situation that some small property owners are finding themselves in after their parents' death, and yet the rent board isn't allowing them to respond to it. Put differently, the SF Rent Board is treating the deliberate decision of a new investor in the same as they are death, which is involuntary. My first question is, legally speaking, is the issue I'm raising credible? My second question is it within your jurisdiction to help with something like this? While I'm not excited about raising anyone's rent, if I'm not allowed to share some of the burden with our tenants after my mother's passing, our tenants will likely be displaced after I'm taxed out. For further context, I was born permanently disabled and am a renter myself. The only reason my mother, 89 years old, retired nurse, ever bought this property was to create an income stream for her disabled son, me. Last, I reached out to the SF Rent Board, 2 city supervisor, and the mayor's office. I've concluded that the city is not interested in addressing the concerns that I'm raising, and that any change would likely have to come from a higher body such as the board. I now understand why the assessor's office suggested I bring this up directly with you. Sincerely, Vaughn McGuire. And that concludes the 2 comments that we received.
Mr. Von McGuire raises several challenges, not only with the legislation, raises challenges within what it's like to be a small property owner in the city and county of San Francisco, to deal with the San Francisco Rent Board. Sounds like Mr. Vaughn is definitely caught up in the political push-pull of the ideological battles that happened in San Francisco. And unfortunately, there is no quick, easy, short, simple answer or remedy to the challenge. And it's also a multi-jurisdictional approach to even begin to have the discussion. I would ask that you pass along the contact information of Mr. Vaughn to my senior tax counsel, John Thiela, so that we can begin to speak to Mr. Vaughn and have a conversation about the political reality as well as the policy reality that we are all living with. And are there any other comments or anything?
No other written comments received.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there anything else on this agenda?
We have the next item.
Please.
Yep, the next
Oh,
item.
yes,
is-
please.
Yeah, if I could.
I'm sorry, I didn't
Sorry.
see your hand.
Yeah, thank you. I just, this, in my view, speaks to why Prop 19 needs to be fixed. And Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association was working toward that end. So I'm hoping that they'll continue to reverse the death tax that was implemented. We wouldn't have received this letter if it weren't for the passage of Prop 19. And now we're dealing with, I've heard upwards of 40,000 cases a year of families having a parent or a grandparent pass away and creating all sorts of havoc in a variety of different ways. I think this is a prime example, but I've heard many others from constituents in my district about, I heard one from a constituent who is a real estate agent who was against Prop 19, and he said that they had a family parcel, and they're trying to figure out what to do with it now because they know that it's going to be reassessed and the family won't be able to hang on to it. This is like open space. Doesn't even have an ag use, but you're seeing a lot of cases, situations where it's going to be a forced sale of property that can create all sorts of problems for the family, and especially those who, if you look at the economic spectrum, those who were pulling out of being poor and striving to get to the middle class, and they finally paid off their house, and they want to pass that on. It's a real tragedy. So I'm just hoping we can continue to discuss it here on the board and look for opportunities to resolve it. And,
Absolutely. We will continue
yeah,
to discuss
thank
it. Let's make sure that we keep a record. Let's keep collecting all of this public comment, because I think it just strengthens the argument that one might need to reevaluate what Prop 19 is and does. And I'm going to ask that Mr. Thiela in my office, that we make sure we pass on that letter to Senator Wiener and Assemblyman Haney, so they know what their constituent is, the challenges that their constituents are feeling. Also, we might want to send a copy to Senator Hertzberg, too.
We should. And along those lines, I think what Member Gaines just mentioned, I happened to be up here last week, and the realtors had their big convention up here, and I made it a point to run into a few of them, and I asked them, I said, were you, because they were big supporters of this, I said, were you aware of what this implications is? And several of them said, well, we passed and supported at the very beginning was not the finished product.
Yeah.
you know, they were, I don't know what the early language was, but it wasn't to penalize intergenerational wealth. And
was
it
that
was
sausage
definitely not just
process
one home
in the
that you
legislature.
could pass on, because they said several of them have, you know, a lot of these realtors have 3 or 4 homes that they were hoping to pass on to their kids. And now they're not going to be able to do it. And they were just kind of surprised that the finished product turned out the way it did. And I said, well, you know, from what I understand, our good senator in Hertzberg just kind of, you know, at the end of the day, as they're, when you probably know this better, Senator, they're, you know, as they're trying to get the votes to get it out of the floor, they're cutting these deals, and at the end of the day, it just took a whole different turn. Anyway.
I'm going to try to go out to public comment again. We had an issue with the AT&T
Okay.
moderator before.
Sounds good.
AT&T moderator, could you let us know if there's anyone on the line who'd like to make a public comment on this item?
Certainly, thank you. Again, ladies and gentlemen, please press 1 and then 0 at this time. And we do have one. Give me just a moment here. Again, it's 1-0. If you hit 1-0 the second time, here we go. Give us a moment here. Just waiting here. As soon as I get a name here, I'll be able to open the line. And we can go to the line of Vaughn McGuire. Please go ahead.
Hey there, Vaughn McGuire. Hey, I just wanted to thank you for all that you guys do. It's very much appreciated. Congratulations to the one young lady who's about to retire. And also, this is a little bit out of turn, so I hope you don't mind me mentioning it. But Howard Jarvis did get 40% of the needed signatures, which is great for the first time out. So they got over the 25% hurdle to have the hearing. However, once it was realized that it'll never be on the ballot, apparently the legislators don't have to allow them to actually have the hearing. So anyway, I heard you guys talking about that earlier. So again, thank you for everything.
Okay, thank you for your comment. Is there anything else that you wanted to add on the record, Mr. McGuire?
Give me a second here. I'd release this line and see if I can get it back here. And Ms. McGuire, your line is open.
Okay. Yeah, if you actually guys do want more public comment, I know a lot of people affected by Prop 19. Is this the right place to air those concerns, though? I'm not sure that I should even be sending you these letters.
Yes, it's one of several places where you can share your grievances with us.
Okay. Okay. Well, thanks again. I appreciate it.
All right, thank you. We receive your feedback. Thank you.
Okay.
Are there any other?
Yes. We have
Are
a
there
couple
any
more
other-
items.
There are, no, I know there are more items. Are there any more comments or feedback?
No.
Okay, thank you, okay. Let's keep moving forward.
The next item is M2A, Public Policy Hearing, Impact of Public Calamities on Property Tax Administration, County Board of Equalization, Assessment Appeal Boards, AAB, remote hearings, follow-up on non-consensus items needing additional guidance regarding remote AAB hearings. There are no staff reports or external speakers for this agenda item for this month's meeting. However, persons who wish to address the board on this topic as a public comment may do so.
Okay, let's see, are there any comments from the public who wish to speak on this item?
We have not received any we have not received a request to present anything in person, and we have not received a written comment, but I will go to the AT&T moderator.
Thank you.
AT&T moderator, please let us know if there's anyone on the line who would like to make a public comment regarding this matter.
Thank you. And please press 1-0 if you would. Again, it's 1-0. And currently none in queue.
Great. If there are no further comments, If there are no further comments from anyone, we'll close this public policy hearing. Ms. Cicchetti, please call the next item.
The next item is N, public comments on matters not on the agenda. Persons who wish to address the Board of Equalization regarding items not on the agenda. Please note that the board cannot take action on items not on the agenda. However, the board can schedule issues raised by the public for consideration at future meetings.
Ms. Cicchetti, do we have any public comments on this?
We have not received any requests for any in-person speaking and no written comments, but we'll go to the AT&T moderator. AT&T moderator, please let us know if there's anyone on the line who'd like to make a public comment on this item.
Please press 10 at this time. And currently nobody in queue.
All right, thank you. Well, Ms. Cicchetti and members and staff, it appears that we are at the final end of our agenda. Colleagues, do you have any final remarks for the day? Mr. Vasquez?
First, I just like to welcome our new member from the Controller's Office. I guess you were already briefly introduced, but I understand that you have some specialties, especially in the area of the property taxes. So really welcome you on board, and looking forward to having some interaction and hopefully some of your thoughts and ideas as we're reshaping our board and, you know, we'd like to see the BoE go in terms of our to the next level. So welcome.
Would you like to comment?
Thank you, member, and I look forward to working with all of you over the next several months. So thank you.
Great, thank you. Any parting comments? Mr. Vasquez, Mr.
Yes,
Gaines?
Yeah, if I could. I just wanted to see if we could adjourn in memory of Frank Latini. I went to his funeral yesterday, and he lived the American dream. He immigrated from Italy, and interesting story. He was a young child in the late 1930s and through World War II, living in Italy, and he was amongst a group of friends. They were all 5 and 6 years old, and one of the children picked up a hand grenade and pulled the pin, and it killed that child that actually had the hand grenade, and Frank was there in that group, and he was rushed off by a GI, and all of his injuries were sewn up, and he survived, immigrated to the U.S., became a mechanic, then went on to join the Army, where he's also a mechanic, got better training, then worked for the Nilo auto dealer here in town that's been around for a long time, and then broke away, started his own business, got married, had a couple of children. His son now runs that business, Frank's Automotive. But it was just a beautiful story about him and his pathway to come to America and being productive small business owner right here in Sacramento. So thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you for sharing us that story. Yes, Mr. Vasquez.
Just in closing, I just, you know, as we're coming to an end today, just wanted to, this weekend is, you know, the observance of Memorial Day, and just wanted to put a little shout out to all the veterans and to thank all those that fought in these wars to actually protect our freedom, right? And just wanted to, hopefully everybody has a safe Memorial Weekend, but also to think about those individuals, both men and women, that have, over the years, have fought in many wars to protect our freedom.
Great. Ms. Dowers?
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick comment. Happy anniversary.
Thank you.
And many, many more years of love to come.
I appreciate that. Thank you. I appreciate that. We celebrated our anniversary over the weekend. Okay.
Congrats.
Okay.
You know, I don't want to be, you know, the unhappy member because I am a happy person. But I see on my list of documents here to read is the utility value setting workbook, but it says confidential. that means that I can't talk about it here, and I certainly can't talk about it off camera, because Henry says if more than two of us are in the same room, we can't talk, you know. But I have a couple of simple questions, and wonder where do I say it? Like on page 1 here.
Sir, we've kind of passed that agenda item. Why don't we ask Henry, maybe you and Henry could circle up after the meeting to raise this issue?
Well, did we
Chair
set-
Cohen, if I can assist, Member Schaefer, what I would suggest is if you want to maybe schedule a conference call between Jack McCool and a representative of legal or myself, we're more than happy to kind of walk you through it and talk about any questions you may have.
Well, I'm curious here that there's a value to be, that's board adopted and it's blank. If it's been board adopted, are we adopting it today? Did we? I'm not aware that we did.
Yes, you adopted it earlier in the meeting.
And we've already covered that in the agenda, so we're not able to go back and open it up, and just want to be mindful of that.
We have $11 million penalty on Blythe Energy, wherever that is.
So on
Did we
individual.
ever discuss that, or is that any of our business?
Individual items, I would recommend you talking to Jack and myself about it. We will be more than happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you. We will now adjourn. It's 3 o'clock. The next meeting will be scheduled for June 28th through the 29th. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for your service today.
Thank you, Malia.